All right, this is the 100-120 class. This is, we're going to do more of the Elizabeth Smart case. And we will begin with a question for the record. I will ask you about the Kemps. Did he tell you about meeting the Kemps?
Yes.
And what happened with the Kemps?
He said that he went to this LDS meeting and that they were just very kind to him. And after the meeting, they invited him into their home for Sunday dinner.
Let me have you pause. What was he wearing when he went with the Kemps?
It was more casual attire. He had his hair pulled back in a ponytail, and he had an elastic around his beard. So it was...
Was he in that robe that he typically was in, the religious type robe?
No.
Was he in regular clothes?
Yes.
Did he indicate to you that he pretended to be someone else to them?
Yes.
And what did he say?
He said that he pretended to be an investigator in the church, and that by doing that, they'd invited him into their home. And he saw a picture of a young girl on the piano, and he asked them if it was their granddaughter, and they laughed. And the wife said, "No, it's my daughter. I'm divorced from my first husband, and she spends every other weekend and Wednesdays here." And so he asked a few more questions about her, and then went on as if nothing was normal, as if nothing was abnormal.
Did he tell you what the purpose of his meeting with the Kemps was?
Yes, he said he was going out to find the second wife.
Did he indicate to you about the age of this girl that he noticed in the photo?
Yes, he said she looked about my age.
Elizabeth, did the defendant act differently with those that agreed with him versus those that disagreed with him?
Yes.
How would he act?
Those that agreed with him, he would say, "God bless you," and yes, and he would be just very agreeable. And those that didn't agree with him, he would ignore, or he would walk away. He would start singing. He would call them to repentance and then leave them.
So there were various things he would do. He would walk away or he would ignore them.
Yes.
He would sing.
Yes.
But he was different.
Yes.
Depending on whether someone would agree with him or didn't.
Yes.
At one point, Elizabeth, the decision was made to leave Utah and to go to San Diego.
Winter was starting to get closer, and the underground house that they were digging was nowhere near being finished. And so they decided that they would have to move somewhere warmer. And then he said that he felt that that was what the Lord wanted him to do, and that they were going to find wife number 2.
Was there any other reason why he wanted to leave Utah?
As far as I know, that was it. Just a way for the winter and to find another young woman.
It was beginning to be inhospitable at the camp. It was beginning to be cold in Utah.
Yes.
And was that a concern of his?
Yes.
At one point while you were in San Diego, there was an incident in which the defendant was arrested. Did he tell you about that?
Yes, he did.
What did he say happened?
He said that well, we didn't have any food, and so he said he was going to go minister. And he said that he went down to the little town we were staying nearby, Lakeside, and he said that the first thing he did was, instead of buying a bus fare, he went to a convenience store and bought a beer. And then he walked around Lakeside, and there was a woman there who had a cart that she was pushing. And she had,
A cart that she was pushing?
yeah, one of those
Like a shopping cart?
little wire like pull along things, I guess,
Okay,
that a lot of people use.
okay.
And she had some prescription medication on the top of it. And he asked her for some, and she said no. And she went into a store, or she went and she left the cart for a minute, and he stole the prescription medication and took a few pills.
Do you know what they were?
I don't know what they were. And then he broke in a church nearby. I'm not sure what denomination it was or what building it was, but he broke in, he broke a window, and he passed out in there because of the alcohol and of the drugs. And the next morning, he was awoken by some police officers, and I guess a young woman that worked there or that had come in. I'm not sure what for. And he was then taken to.
Was he arrested?
Yes, he was.
And did he tell you about being booked into jail?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said that he was sitting cross-legged on the floor and that he had some worn out long johns, thermal pajama type on, well, underneath his robes, and that his robe was pulled up high, and there was a big hole in the crotch of the thermal underwear. And it was just right where his private parts were. And he said that the woman booking him and the other people there that were booking him in, they could see everything and that they liked it, what they saw.
Did he indicate that he had a lawyer for that episode?
Yes, he did.
What did he say about his lawyer?
He said that his lawyer was bright, young man, and that when he went into the judge, he pleaded not guilty. And the lawyer advised him to plead guilty, that he would have to pay for the replacement of the window and do some hours of community service.
Did he indicate to you that he followed the advice of his lawyer?
He said that he did go ahead and pled guilty to that, and then he was released.
Where were you and Wanda while he was in jail?
Wanda was keeping guard over me, and we were up on the mountainside in Lakeside where they had set up camp. And it had been a holiday weekend when we went out. And I'm not quite sure. I think it was President's Day or Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I don't remember which holiday it was, but he had to sit in jail for 3 days before he could go before the judge. And since it was the holiday weekend, it had to be business days. And so it ended up being an actual 6 to 7 days before he came back to camp.
If he had indicated to the judge that the three of you were staying with friends, was he lying?
Yes.
Elizabeth, did you or Wanda ever have to explain to him the legal system
No.
or the charges against him?
No.
Or have to explain anything that he was confused or incapable of understanding about what happened to him?
No. He understood a lot. He was a very intelligent, well, smart. He knew a lot of things.
Did he ever appear to be bewildered, confused, or out of control?
No.
Did you observe the defendant sing?
Yes.
Did he sing often?
Yes.
Did you ever observe him to sing in order to manipulate someone or a situation he was in?
Yes.
Was he capable of turning the singing off and on when he needed to?
Yes.
Did his desire or compulsion to sing ever get in the way of something he wanted?
No.
Elizabeth, did he ever, when he was trying to get either sex or food, drugs, alcohol, or transportation, spontaneously burst into singing so that it kept him from communicating what he wanted?
No.
Did you observe him attempt to get sex, drugs, food, transportation?
Yes.
Did he ever burst into singing so that it prevented him from getting those things?
No.
Were there times when you were confronted by law enforcement during your time with the defendant?
Yes.
When were those occasions?
There was a time in the Salt Lake City Library before it was remodeled when a detective approached him and had asked that I remove the veil and head covering that they had me wear always. And he said that I couldn't. It was part of our religion, and there was no possible way I could do that.
Did he ever burst into singing when he was confronted by law enforcement?
No.
Did you or Wanda ever have to intervene on his behalf because he was not in control
No.
or because he had burst out into singing
No.
or because there was some concept that he did not understand?
No.
Elizabeth, did you ever get the sense that the defendant enjoyed or got a kick out of fooling others?
Yes.
What did he do or say that gave you this impression?
He would just say that, like, he'd be laughing and just say, oh, they think they're so smart. They think they're guiding me to the light, when really they don't know that I'm the Davidic king, that I know all this. I could dance circles around them. They don't know who they're dealing with.
Did he brag about how much he knew about different topics or subjects?
Yes.
What would he say?
He talked about, anything that ever came up, he had to be right. He had to know about it. like he had to be the authority there on that topic.
Did that include things that were religious or not religious?
Yes,
Any topic?
yes,
Is it fair to say in this 9-month period of time, Elizabeth, with the defendant, that you came across a number of individuals?
yes,
Considering all of these people you encountered during your travels with the defendant, did anyone ever suggest to you or Wanda that you heard that the defendant needed professional help,
no,
that you should get him to a hospital or get him help?
no,
In your observations of the defendant, did you conclude he was intelligent?
yes,
What made you conclude this?
he did. He knew a lot about a lot of different things. He told me about his previous life, about what he did, what he'd done. He was a very capable, intelligent human being.
Was he articulate?
Yes,
Was the defendant honest?
no,
Do you believe he was honest, Elizabeth?
no,
Did you observe him lie?
yes,
Was lying difficult for him, or did it come easy?
it was easy.
Was he convincing?
To many people, I think so.
Were you convinced?
No,
Others were convinced by him?
yes,
Did he indicate to you that he had the Kemps deceived?
yes,
You indicated earlier that he was determined not to get caught. How determined was the defendant not to get caught?
he said that he would kill anybody who came into the camp, or he would kill me if I ever tried to escape or yelled out or did anything that was not in accordance with what he wanted.
All right, we're going to continue on a little bit faster, beginning with a question for the record. Did he give you instructions if you were ever confronted by someone?
Yes,
And what were those instructions?
he told me to say that we were traveling ministers and that he was my father and that Wanda was my mother and that
Did he tell you to refer to them as father and mother in that instance?
Yes.
Okay, what else?
And he told me to say that I had been homeschooled and that we had no permanent address, that we just traveled around ministering to the different people.
Did he tell you to use a name?
Yes,
What was that name?
Augustine Marshall.
Augustine Marshall?
Yes,
Do you know how he came up with that name?
it was after the month August.
What about Wanda? Did he have a name for Wanda?
Yes,
And what was that name?
Juliet,
Was there a meaning behind Juliet?
the month of July.
Did he have different names for himself that he would use?
Yes.
What were those names?
Well, there was his name that he went by Emmanuel David Isaiah. And then he went by David Shirlson, and David was his middle name. And Shirlson, his father's name was Shirl, and he was Shirl's son. So that's how he came with that name. And then he gave a fake name when he was booked into San Diego, when he was being held in San Diego. He gave a different name.
Did he tell you what that name was?
Michael Jensen.
Did he ever quiz you on what you were supposed to say?
Yes,
Did he ever, Elizabeth, in the 9 months that you were with him, Did he ever introduce you to others as his bride?
No,
Ever publicly acknowledge that you were his bride?
no,
Besides you or Wanda, did he ever tell anyone else that he had been commanded to marry several young girls? As far as you know, did you ever hear him tell anyone else?
no,
Did you ever observe him tell anyone else that he was to plunder or steal young girls to be his brides?
no,
Did he tell you and Wanda that?
yes,
You indicated that there was some instances when he was confronted or you all were confronted by law enforcement. Did you observe him talk his way out of the situation?
yes,
Did he have an ability to argue on his behalf?
yes,
How was he in an argument?
forceful, determined,
Was he quick on his feet?
yes,
Could he adapt to his surroundings?
yes,
Did you observe him adapt to the people he was with or the circumstance he was in?
yes,
Did he ever indicate to you that he had studied psychology, mind control, and hypnosis?
yes.
What did he say about it?
He spoke about how people thought, and he talked about a time in his life when he was in southern Utah, I believe, and he was with his brother. And he had some books that he had been reading that were on like hypnosis and witchcraft, I think.
Did he ever tell you about getting away with things in his past?
Yes.
What did he say?
He talked about how in high school he was one of the graduating seniors, and there was a girl who was younger, and she was physically mature for her age, and how he just came up behind her and stuck his hand down her shirt and then walked away and nothing ever happened. And he talked about his 2 previous marriages and how he had been accused with molesting his second wife's youngest daughter and how nothing ever happened because of that, like how he was able to walk away from that.
Did he ever talk about being able to walk away from financial debt or other obligations?
Yes, he talked about how he had walked away from an apartment lease. He talked about how he had walked away from a big fifth wheel trailer that they had taken up to Idaho, and he stopped making payments on it. And they just left it on some property sitting up there and walked away from it. He talked about how the LDS church had called an excommunication hearing and how he just never showed up to it. And so he walked away from that. And he talked about how his mother had gotten a restraining order put on him. And he didn't care. He just walked away from that.
Elizabeth, are you aware that the defendant was writing a book called The Book of Emmanuel David Isaiah?
Yes,
Are you aware that he wrote in this book after his capture?
yes,
This will be some practice at 120 words per minute, beginning with a question for the record. You gave us your full name a minute ago off the record. Would you please give it again on the record?
yes. Raymond E. Cheney.
Cheney.
Yes.
Mr. Cheney, what does the E stand for?
Edward.
Do you prefer Pastor or Mr. Cheney?
Pastor.
Pastor Cheney, my name is Kelly Clark. We have just been introduced. I represent the plaintiff Paula Hawthorne in the lawsuit that has been filed against Mr. Wendell Markley and the New Hope Church. The purpose of the proceeding today is for me to ask you some questions while you are under oath about the knowledge that you might have about the circumstances giving rise to that lawsuit. Pastor, have you ever had your deposition taken before?
No, I have not.
Let me explain briefly the procedure that I will use and make sure you understand it. If you have any questions, you can ask me or Mr. Norwood off the record. I will use the question and answer format, which means I'll ask a question and you give me your best answer. That's the general format. What that means is, Pastor, if you don't understand a question that I ask, either because it's simply confusing or because you think it contains an improper assumption or something like that, that you flag that for me and tell me. Will you do that?
Yes.
As you are doing now, if you would wait until I finish a question before you give me an answer, that also provides for a better transcript. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Speaking of transcript, I suspect you know the proceedings today are being transcribed, and any lawyer in the case has the ability to ask for a transcription of the proceedings that have been made, and there will be a booklet produced with everything that we say here today on the record printed out. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
And the purpose of that transcript, at least partially, is in the event that you are asked to testify in any trial in this matter, you have an accurate reflection of your testimony, and that if any portion of your testimony differs at the time of trial than it does today, then I will be able to point that difference out and ask you about it. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
All right. And then the final ground rule is if you need to take a break, ask me. Will you do that?
Fine.
Pastor, what is your address, please?
12102 Southeast Deerfield Drive, Portland, Oregon.
Is that in Portland?
Yes, 97238.
What is your current occupation, please?
I'm a senior pastor of New Dreams Community Church in Portland, Oregon.
How long have you been in that capacity?
I have been senior pastor at New Dreams since August 15th of 1995.
Were you on staff at New Dreams prior to August 15, 1995?
Yes, I was on staff as co-pastor with Dale Gandera from September 15, 1993 until September 15, 1994.
And then what did you do from September 15, 1994 to August 15, 1995?
I worked for Dr. Robert Schuler at the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California.
First of all, who was your employer? Was it Dr. Schuler?
Yes.
What was your position with Dr. Schuler?
I was director of the Hour of Power in Cinema.
Hour of Power in Cinema?
Yes.
What is that?
The Hour of Power is a weekly televised program across the United States and internationally. And we were setting sites in theaters here and abroad just as an alternative to getting the Hour of Power out.
So I have the sequence correct. Senior pastor at New Dreams since August 15, 1995. co-pastor with Pastor Gandara for a year from September 93 to November 94, and the Schuler position was in between.
Yes.
Can you describe briefly for me the circumstances giving rise to your leaving New Dreams Church in September of 94 and taking the position with Dr. Schuler?
Yes, Dr. Schuler called me, and we had been friends for a number of years, and asked me if I would take this new project on for him. And at that point, New Dreams was having some financial difficulties, and I felt it would be better for the church if I would take this new position. And it was a job that interested me, and the salary was quite a bit higher at that point too.
Was it designed to be a one-year position?
It was indefinite as far as that particular position. Dr. Schuler did tell me that I could work for him as long as I wanted to, and he did offer me another position when we finished the Hour of Power project.
When did the Hour of Power project finish?
It finished, I believe our last work on it was in June of 1995.
When then did you make the decision to come back to New Dreams?
I believe that decision was made late May or June of 1995.
Do you know, Pastor, if during that time frame, late May or June of 95, if Pastor Gandara had already made the decision to take the position at the seminary?
Yes, I was not asked to consider the position at New Dreams until he had resigned.
What did you do prior to becoming co-pastor in September of 93?
I served as senior pastor of Central Community Church in Wichita, Kansas.
Central Community?
Central Community Church, yes.
How long were you there?
I was there from May of 1974 until August of 1993.
During that time, did you have any other outside employment?
No.
Were you employed as a pastor prior to joining Central Community Church?
I had served as a youth pastor prior to that.
At the same church?
Yes, I served as youth pastor at Central Community Church for 6 months, and then I became senior pastor.
Had you had any employment as a pastor prior to serving as youth pastor?
I served as youth pastor at Woodstock Church of God in Portland, Oregon, while I was completing my education at Warner Pacific College.
All right, this will be some two-voice warm-up at 130 words per minute for the record. He said that.
Everything on the piece of paper.
All right, so what happened? You started to say something about going to Mr. Frederick's office. When did that take place?
On June the 6th.
All right. How did you happen to go to Mr. Frederick's office?
He would allow people to ask questions at the meeting, and so he asked if anybody has any questions to ask, to make a point, to tell a supervisor and make an appointment and come to his office. I had an appointment at 12:05, and I went up there. I took off my lunch break and I went up there, and the girl, I asked where Mr. Frederick's office was, and she took me to Mr. Frederick. He was the one in the room.
That they would support the union?
I'll rephrase it. He said that just like Barney Crown is protecting those that's supporting the union, he will protect those that's not supporting the union.
Do you remember anything else he said?
Not at this moment.
Did he mention anything about a wage increase?
Yes, he said the union would not give a wage increase.
You say when you were at the speech with Mr. Frederick that you heard Mr. Frederick give, were you sitting at tables or where were you?
We were just pulled chairs out and we were sitting in line. People sat at the tables, but we weren't. We just got us some chairs and sat right to the front where he was talking.
Where did he give this speech?
In the company cafeteria.
You say we. Who was with you?
It was Marinelle McLean, Desi Fryer, Mary Stroman, and Darlene Brent.
You say you worked until June the 7th, 1978. Were you discharged on that date?
Yes.
I hand you a document marked for identification as General Counsel's Exhibit 8 and ask you if you have seen that before.
Yes.
What is that document?
That is my 800 form to draw unemployment.
All right. Where did you get a copy of that form?
Bart Talon gave it to me.
Who is Bart Talon?
I guess he's production manager. I don't know.
All right. It says on here, Industrial Relations Manager. Is that?
Something like that.
All right. Now, what did you do with your copy of this document?
I brought it down and gave it to Barney. Then Barney made copies of it. Then I went to the unemployment office.
You took the original that was given to you at the plant to the unemployment office?
Uh-huh.
Do they still have that?
I'm quite sure they do.
You don't have it?
No.
Now, you said you started to work there in April of 77?
Yes, sir.
All right. And at any point in time in May of 78, did you decide that you wanted to leave the employment?
Yes.
When was that?
I can't remember the exact date. I just told them I wanted to put my 2-week notice in. She really hadn't given me a date to work up to. I just told them I would put my 2-week notice in and leave.
When you say she, who are you referring to as she?
I talked to Sharon Redmond.
Sharon Redmond?
Yes.
Who is Sharon Redmond?
At the time, she was my supervisor. My supervisor was in the hospital and she was over us.